The 2016 Sony Bravia 65-inch X930D, Sony's flagship in the 65-inch arena. When I saw this television announced at CES 2016, I was quite excited, as it retained 3D as well as improving the HDR capabilities over its 2015 line. In fact, its peak nits is about 1,000, and it has a wide color gamut, and the local dimming is sort of a pseudo full array. However, it does not do a very good job, as there's lots of black uniformity issues and clouding. The screen is also ultra thin, and because of the ultra thin design of this television, it has a lot of issues with the actual television being bent. The 3D, the feature which I primarily bought this television for, does not work. It's filled with crosstalk in the foreground and background that make it unwatchable. Combine this with Sony's poor support I've received over this television, this set is not a keeper. Not for $3,500, not for $2,500. This TV should cost far less for the kind of end product that you get. Now, I'll show some of these issues I've encountered here, to include the 3D, the bent frame, the clouding, and Sony's response to my issues. Alright, let's take a look at the bend now. So after doing my initial online research, I went to a San Diego Best Buy and took a look at this television here you're seeing right now. And I was quite shocked to see the amount of deformation in the frame of the television. And there was actually a Sony engineer there from Japan who was quite surprised when I showed it to him. And the people at Best Buy are also pretty shocked. I then took a trip over to Fry's, and they also had a pretty much just out the box television, and this television also shows a slight degree of bend. Not as much as the one at Best Buy, but it's still bent. I then finally got my own television, and the first one I had a slight degree of bend to it. I contacted Sony on this one, and they basically told me they've been hearing about it, but that it's normal for this particular display. So I took a trip to the East Coast for a conference, and the first thing I did is I stopped off at a store and I looked at the 900C. This TV is half as thick, and it should also bend if it's based on a thickness issue, which it's not bent at all. So it leads me to believe that there's some other issue going on with how these TVs are being shipped or packaged that leads them to be bent. I also took a trip over to the Best Buy, and this one was probably one of the worst ones I've seen yet, and it has a large degree of bend to it. When I got back from my trip, I did an unboxing video here, and here's my second 65-inch X930D, and as I pull the cover off, you can see this one has a slight degree of bend to it as well. Now, I left this thing in the carton. I literally took the carton apart and just took the top off. There was no damage to the box, no strap marks, so that's what leads me to believe that these things are getting damaged either in shipping or packing or production, but I don't think the end user is so much causing this issue. And as you can see, there's some other examples here. This one, I don't know how it made it on the wall of the Best Buy. I found this one online. I don't know if it is a Best Buy, but it's I can't believe they're even displaying this one. It's so atrocious. And users online are posting pictures. Here's a good example of an unhappy user. He got his TV home, put it on the wall, and I mean, you might as well call this thing a curved display. So I sent a community message out on the forums, and this is the response I got back, basically saying that the amount of bend in the panel may be related to environmental or viewing conditions. I don't see how temperature or lighting or how you're looking at the TV affects the degree of bend. As we see, these things are not all the same. They also say it doesn't affect the viewing experience, which I don't believe, because the uniformity gets damaged here. You can see in this photo that the backlight uniformity is not good, because the light diffuser inside now has a slight bend to it. And it doesn't only affect it in dark screens, but in light screens you can see that there's this big dark splotch right in the middle of the screen there that goes across it, and there's a light spot below it. So this affects the viewing in all realms. So not very good. Alright, so now we'll look at the 3D performance or lack thereof on the 65-inch X930D. We use a Sony BDP S6500 and the Sony TDG 500A, BT500A glasses, completing the Sony ecosystem. So first we'll look at the Spears and Munson test disc, and this is their display montage. So here we go, putting the glasses on. You can kind of see there's some crosstalk in the background. Everything kind of looks fuzzy, and when we remove the glasses, you'll see that this is the image without, and then with, you can see there's a lot of crosstalk still going on here, and you're seeing a single eye image here, so you have to imagine that with the glasses on, you'd be seeing crosstalk on both sides of the image, not just the single side that you'll see here in these demos here. So this may not be the most scientific or best way to analyze crosstalk, but you can clearly see it here in some of this demo footage. The crosstalk is obvious and it's very blurry. Most other 3D sets, these scenes are really nice, and while this might not be Sony's material, I would consider this pretty high quality because it looks really good on other displays here. You can see the pillars here. You can see that kind of ghost image off to the right there because we're using the left eye here. Here's Hotel Transylvania. You can see the lettering here. This is, I think, without the glasses, and here we go. You can kind of see that shadow to the left there. And this is Sony's own footage, and the whole movie ends up being like this after about 15 minutes. It's pretty hard to watch this entire movie through because everything just looks blurry and ghosty, and it's just not watchable. So I contacted Sony on this matter, and they weren't very helpful. The immediate response I got out of them was that the 3D performance cannot be improved. Actually, the first thing they told me was I needed to use their glasses, and I did. So I contacted them on the phone and didn't get a response. I think I called about a dozen times. They never called me back, and I got this email, or actually a message back on the forum, and it basically says that the TV is very dependent on 3D content and that it won't be fixed with hardware or software. They called it on the phone low quality content, and I assured them that I was using their own glasses, their own player, and Sony production movies, to include movies like The Martian and Exodus that are Sony's own product, and the content is still very poor. So using Sony's complete ecosystem doesn't even solve the issue. I don't know what high quality content is out there. There may be a movie out there where it's not so bad, but as far as I've tried a few dozen different titles from various manufacturers and production companies, and none of them seem to have any type of clear 3D capability. It's basically an unusable feature. Now there is a slider to which you can actually adjust the depth of field, and it will affect the foreground or background, but at the expense of the opposite being worse. So there's really no way to tweak the 3D clarity inside the television or with a player. It's all completely unusable. The last thing I'd like to talk about is the screen uniformity, and as you can see here on my second television with a 0 black image here and the local dimming off and brightness turned up, there's still quite a bit of clouding, flashlighting that disturb the picture, and this is visible when watching content. And the next picture I have here is a good example. This is the 65-inch Sony versus a 65-inch P-Series Vizio that has a full array, and while it's not fair really to compare them, you can kind of see how when the Sony tries to drive a bright image against a black image, the screen uniformity issues really stand out, and it's quite troublesome for a TV that costs $3,500. And Sony really pitched this television hard as something to compare against and compete against OLED. And while it's pretty innovative with the backlight drive and the native contrast radio is not too bad, it has a hard time keeping up with displays that cost far less. There's really no redeeming quality for the fact that this television has features that don't work, the deformed panels, just the overall issues this TV has. The sum of all the components don't add up to be a great display. And the bend is probably one of the largest thing that's going to affect most consumers, since 3D is kind of a niche thing at this point. But you really can't sell a TV to customers for $3,500 and expect them to accept this. In the end, it comes down to the customer service is not really serving up here. You can have problems with any product you buy, but if a company is willing to back it up, then it's worth working with that company. And Sony is just standing still, giving you the stiff arm, saying the bend is normal, the 3D can't be fixed, and that this is all normal, and it's basically my fault because of the content. If you like this video, please like it, leave comments below, and thanks for watching.